Incredible offer. The cowboy buys both Apache women before everyone else. The sun rose over the dusty town of Red Rock, casting long shadows across the wooden buildings that lined the main street. The air was dry, filled with the smell of horses' leather and the faint smoke from early morning fires. Life in Red Rock was simple, predictable, and sometimes lonely. Most days, the townspeople followed the same routines. Men tended to their ranches or shops, women kept their homes and watched over children, and everyone gathered at the small saloon in the evening to share news and stories. But today was different. Today, the town buzzed with excitement and curiosity because a new face had appeared on the horizon. From the hills to the west came a lone rider. Dust rose in his wake as he guided his horse down the winding path that led into town. His movements were confident, precise, and calm. He was tall, with a rugged face that showed years of experience under the harsh sun. A wide-brimmed hat shaded his eyes, but even so, the townspeople could see a spark of intelligence and daring in them. He wore a worn leather jacket and boots that had clearly seen countless trails. He was a cowboy, but not just any cowboy. People whispered that he was known for making bold deals and taking risks others would never dare. As he entered the town square, children stopped playing and stared in awe. Horses neighed and pawed at the ground as their riders paused to watch the stranger. The townsfolk gathered near the wooden boardwalks, curious to see who this newcomer was and what brought him to Red Rock. The sheriff, a sturdy man with a sharp eye and a calm demeanor, tipped his hat but said nothing. The cowboy rode slowly, letting the town take him in before stopping near the saloon. Inside the saloon, the atmosphere changed the moment the cowboy appeared. Patrons who had been talking softly grew silent. A piano played a lively tune, but even the music seemed to pause, as if the room had sensed something extraordinary was about to happen. The cowboy dismounted, tying his horse with practiced ease. He carried himself with a quiet authority, and even without speaking, he seemed to command attention. He walked to the center of the room, his boots creaking against the wooden floor. When he spoke, his voice was deep and calm, yet it carried an edge of determination that made everyone listen. He was not here to cause trouble, but he was here to make an offer, one that no one in Red Rock had ever heard before. The townspeople leaned forward, curiosity and anticipation growing with every word. The cowboy began to tell his story, explaining that he had traveled far and wide across the frontier. He had seen towns like Red Rock before, places filled with hardworking people, families struggling to survive, and cultures that were rich yet often overlooked by outsiders. He spoke of the Apache people, a community that had a history full of strength, skill, and resilience. He knew about their traditions, their ways of living with the land, and their incredible ability to adapt and survive in harsh conditions. He respected them deeply and wanted to learn from them, not take from them. He mentioned that he had heard of 2 young Apache women whose skills and wisdom were known even beyond their community. These women were clever, resourceful, and capable of handling challenges that most adults would find daunting. They could ride, hunt, and navigate the wilderness like no one else, and they carried the knowledge of their ancestors with pride. The cowboy's plan was simple yet bold. He wanted to make an arrangement that would allow him to support them and their people while also learning from their culture. The townspeople were shocked. No one had ever made such a proposal openly before. People whispered to each other, eyes wide with disbelief. Some were skeptical, fearing the cowboy might have hidden motives. Others were intrigued, wondering if this could really work and how it might change their quiet town. Even the saloon owner, a burly man who had seen many strangers pass through Red Rock, stopped polishing glasses and leaned against the bar to listen more closely. Meanwhile, the cowboy patiently waited for reactions, showing no impatience or arrogance. He knew that trust was earned, not demanded. He understood that the arrangement he proposed would require respect, fairness, and careful consideration. It was not about possession or control. It was about partnership, understanding, and the possibility of something new and promising. He emphasized that the Apache women would have a voice in every decision, and that their culture and freedom would be honored above all else. Outside, the wind whispered through the streets, carrying dust and the scent of wild sage. Townspeople moved in small groups, discussing the cowboy and his unusual plan. Children peeked from behind barrels and doorways, curious about the stranger and the women they had never met. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the entire town held its breath, waiting for what would come next. As the day progressed, more details emerged. The cowboy explained that his plan would provide opportunities for learning, trade, and cultural exchange. He spoke of teaching new skills to help the community thrive, while also gaining knowledge from the Apache women's unique expertise. It was not a transaction in the usual sense. It was a partnership designed to benefit both sides. The townspeople began to understand that this was not a typical offer. They were witnessing something rare, even remarkable, in the rough and rugged life of the frontier. By evening, word had spread across the town, and a small crowd gathered near the town hall to hear more from the cowboy. He welcomed questions, answered with honesty, and showed patience and humility. People began to see him not as a stranger, but as someone who could bridge two worlds, someone who respected culture, knowledge, and human dignity. The Apache women, though not present yet, were already the topic of conversation, and the town wondered how they would react to such a bold and respectful proposal. As the sun set over Red Rock, painting the sky with orange and pink hues, the cowboy prepared to meet the women for the first time. He knew that trust would take time, that respect had to be earned, and that every word and action mattered. The townspeople, still buzzing with curiosity, felt that this was the beginning of something extraordinary, an event that would be remembered long after the dust of Red Rock had settled. The stage was set for a story of courage, respect, and daring decisions. The cowboy had arrived, the women awaited, and the town held its breath, ready to witness a moment that could change lives forever. The morning sun rose over the rolling hills beyond Red Rock, casting a warm, golden light on the landscape. Far from the town, in a small camp nestled near the edge of a river, lived two young Apache women. Their lives were deeply connected to the land around them, shaped by generations of knowledge passed down through their families. The river provided water, the forests offered shelter and food, and the open plains allowed them to move freely and learn skills essential for survival. These women were strong, intelligent, and independent, each with a quiet confidence that reflected the wisdom of their people. The older of the two, Naya, had a calm and thoughtful nature. She knew how to track animals, find edible plants, and navigate the wilderness with ease. Her younger sister, Iana, was energetic and curious, always eager to explore and learn. She had a talent for listening to the land, the way the wind shifted, the birds sang, or the trees whispered secrets about approaching weather. Together, they shared a bond that was unbreakable, supporting each other through every challenge life threw their way. On this particular morning, their routine began as it always did. Naya carefully inspected the traps she had set the night before, checking for any signs of small animals that might provide food. Gianna gathered firewood and helped prepare the morning meal. Their movements were precise, almost instinctive, shaped by years of practice and respect for the world around them. There was a sense of harmony in their actions, a rhythm that mirrored the natural flow of the land. As they worked, Naya spoke quietly, her voice carrying the calm authority she naturally possessed. "Iana, we must remain cautious. People from the town often do not understand our ways. They may admire what we can do, but they cannot always respect it." Iana nodded, her bright eyes attentive. "I understand, sister, But sometimes I wonder if meeting new people could teach us something too. Perhaps we could learn without losing ourselves." Their conversation reflected a deep awareness of the world beyond their camp. They had been taught to honor their culture and traditions, yet they also knew that the wider world existed with opportunities and challenges they could not ignore. It was this balance of wisdom and curiosity that had guided them through their young lives and had earned them a reputation even beyond their community. Meanwhile, word of the cowboys' arrival had reached them through travelers and messengers. Initially, they had heard only whispers, stories of a man from the town who sought to make a bold and unusual offer. Some in the Apache community were wary, questioning his motives and whether he could truly be trusted. Others were intrigued, curious about what such a proposal could mean for their lives and their people. Naya and Ayana listened carefully to these stories, weighing each detail, assessing every possible outcome. When the cowboy finally arrived at their camp, it was not in a hurry or with force. He approached with respect, dismounting his horse at a distance and letting it graze while he walked slowly toward them. His eyes were calm, and his hands remained visible at all times, showing that he carried no threat. There was a quiet dignity in his manner, and the women noticed it immediately. He did not speak until he was close enough to be heard clearly but maintained a respectful distance. "I come with respect and with an offer," he said, his voice steady. "I have traveled far to meet you both because I have heard of your knowledge, skill, and wisdom. I do not wish to take from you or control you. I wish only to support, learn, and share in a way that honors who you are and what you know." Naya regarded him carefully, her eyes measuring his sincerity. "Many have said such words before," she replied slowly. "It is not enough to speak them. Actions are what matter." "How do we know your intentions are true?" The cowboy nodded, as if he had anticipated the question. "I understand. Trust is earned, not demanded. I am willing to show you in every action that I mean only respect and fairness. My goal is to create a partnership that benefits both your people and mine." Yana, though younger and more curious, observed every detail. She noticed how he carefully avoided stepping on plants or disturbing the small animals around them. She noticed how he spoke not to dominate but to explain. There was a patience in him, a willingness to listen, and a humility that was rare among outsiders. For several days, the cowboy stayed near the camp, not intruding but observing and learning. He helped with small tasks, gathering water, preparing simple meals, and learning the correct way to set traps and recognize edible plants. Naya and Ayana watched closely, correcting him gently when he made mistakes, and over time, a cautious respect developed. They began to see that his words were not empty promises. He was willing to adapt to their ways and honor their knowledge. As the days passed, the two women began to discuss the possibility of forming a partnership with him. They spoke in quiet tones, weighing the benefits and risks. Naya considered how such an arrangement could provide resources for their community and ensure protection against challenges they could not face alone. Yana thought about the opportunities to learn from the cowboys' experiences and the possibility of connecting their culture to the wider world in a respectful manner. Yet, they also acknowledged the dangers. Outsiders often failed to understand the traditions and values of the Apache people. Miscommunication could lead to mistakes, and trust given too easily could be exploited. They agreed that any decision would require careful planning, clear boundaries, and an insistence on mutual respect. The cowboy recognized their caution and never pressured them. Instead, he engaged in meaningful conversations about culture, survival, and values. He asked questions about their traditions, listened to their stories, and made an effort to understand their perspective. Slowly, the women realized that he was not just a stranger seeking a clever deal. He was someone genuinely interested in learning from them and contributing positively to their lives. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky with shades of orange and purple. The three of them sat by the river. The sound of flowing water mixed with the calls of birds returning to their nests. The cowboy shared stories of his travels, tales of towns far away, of challenges he had faced, and of lessons learned through trial and error. The women, in turn, shared stories of their ancestors, of survival in the wilderness, and of the values that guided their community. It was a meeting of worlds, not with dominance or fear, but with curiosity, respect, and understanding. By the end of the week, a bond had begun to form. Naya and Ayana realized that, while they would remain cautious, the cowboy could be trusted to a degree they had not expected. He had shown patience, respect, and a willingness to learn, qualities rare among outsiders. They also understood that their decisions would not be simple. They would need to maintain their independence, protect their culture, and ensure that any arrangement honored their traditions. The first part of their journey together was one of observation, dialogue, and mutual respect. It was a time for building trust, understanding motives, and learning from each other. The cowboy was no longer just a curious stranger. He was becoming a figure who might help bridge two worlds, offering possibilities that had seemed distant and uncertain. As the night deepened, the stars appeared one by one in the clear desert sky. The women felt a mixture of anticipation and caution. They knew that choices made now could change the course of their lives, for better or worse. Yet they also recognized an opportunity, a chance to protect their culture, gain new knowledge, and navigate the challenges of a changing world. In that quiet, starlit moment, they made a silent pact to continue observing, learning, and deciding carefully, aware that the days ahead would test their wisdom, courage, and strength. The story of the cowboy and the Apache women had only just begun. It was a story of mutual respect, discovery, and the courage to make difficult choices. And as the night settled over the river and the hills, the three of them prepared for the journey that lay ahead, a journey that would challenge them, teach them, and ultimately bring them closer together through understanding, trust, and shared purpose. The morning in Red Rock was brighter than usual, as if the town itself had sensed that something important was about to happen. Word of the cowboy's arrival and his unusual intentions had spread quickly through the streets. By the time he left the camp near the river to return to the town, a small crowd had gathered near the town hall, eager to hear more about the proposal he planned to make. Men leaned against fences, women whispered quietly to one another, and children peered from behind barrels and doorways, their eyes wide with curiosity. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The cowboy arrived in the town square with a calm confidence. His horse followed closely behind, tethered carefully to a post. As he walked among the townspeople, he noticed the mixture of skepticism, curiosity, and hope in their faces. He knew that his words would need to be clear, honest, and persuasive. It was not enough to simply make an offer. He had to show respect and sincerity while ensuring that the townspeople understood the benefits of his plan, not just for himself, but for everyone involved. He climbed the steps of the town hall and turned to face the crowd. There was a hush as people waited for him to speak. The cowboy cleared his throat and began, his voice strong yet gentle, carrying across the square. "People of Red Rock," he said, "I come not as a conqueror, not as a man seeking to take from anyone, but as someone hoping to create a partnership, one built on respect, fairness, and understanding. I have traveled far and learned much about the lands, the people, and the cultures I have encountered. Today, I ask for your attention and your patience as I explain my intentions." The townspeople listened intently, some leaning forward, some frowning with skepticism. The cowboy paused, allowing his words to sink in before continuing. "I have come to speak about two young Apache women who are known for their skill, wisdom, and strength. These women are not ordinary. They carry knowledge that is rare, valuable, and worthy of respect. My goal is to form an arrangement that supports them, honors their culture, and allows all of us to benefit through understanding and cooperation." A murmur spread through the crowd. Some people whispered questions to their neighbors. Others exchanged uncertain glances. The cowboy continued, aware of their hesitation. "I do not wish to control or take from them. I seek to learn from them, to support their growth and the well-being of their community. I offer resources, protection, and opportunities for trade and learning. In return, they may share their knowledge with me, allowing us to work together to improve our lives and strengthen our bonds as neighbors." The mayor of Red Rock, a tall man with a lined face that showed years of worry and responsibility, stepped forward. "You speak boldly, stranger," he said, "but why should we trust that your intentions are honorable? Many outsiders have come to our town with promises they could not keep." The cowboy met the mayor's gaze steadily. "I understand your caution," he replied. "Trust cannot be demanded, it must be earned. I am willing to demonstrate my intentions through actions, not just words. I ask only that you consider the possibility that this partnership can benefit everyone involved, without harming anyone, without disrespecting traditions, and without taking what does not belong to me." A few townspeople nodded slowly, their interest piqued. Some merchants whispered about the potential benefits of learning new skills and trades. Others were curious about the chance to witness Apache knowledge firsthand, something they had only heard of in stories. Even the children seemed more attentive than usual, sensing that the events unfolding could be different from the ordinary days of their small town. The cowboy then spoke of the practical details of his proposal. He described how he would provide supplies, tools, and training to support the women and their community. He emphasized that they would maintain autonomy over their own lives and decisions, and that their culture and traditions would always be respected. He spoke of cooperation rather than ownership, and of opportunities for cultural exchange, trade, and mutual benefit. As he spoke, a group of skeptics began to voice their doubts. "And what if this is just a trick?" one man called out. "How do we know he won't take advantage of them?" The cowboy nodded, acknowledging the concern. "Your caution is wise," he said. "That is why I insist on transparency and fairness. Any agreement must be clear, with boundaries that protect the women and their community. I will not act alone, and I welcome your oversight. This is not about power, it is about partnership." At this point, a few women from the town spoke up, showing support for the proposal. "If he truly respects them and their culture, perhaps this could be a good opportunity," one said. "It could bring knowledge and resources to our town and to theirs." Another added, "We must ensure the women have a choice. They should have a say in everything." The cowboy agreed wholeheartedly. "Absolutely. Their voice is central. Nothing happens without their agreement and full consent. They are not commodities, they are skilled, wise, and independent individuals whose wishes must guide every decision." As the discussion continued, a sense of cautious optimism began to grow. People began to see that the cowboys' intentions were not selfish, but aimed at creating a positive outcome for all involved. They saw a man willing to learn, willing to respect culture, and willing to work within clear boundaries. Slowly, resistance softened, replaced by curiosity and hope. Meanwhile, word of the gathering had reached the Apache women at the camp. Naya and Ayana listened carefully as travelers and messengers recounted the cowboy's words. They were cautious, but intrigued. His respect for their autonomy, his willingness to learn, and his openness to partnership had earned their attention. They realized that this could be an opportunity, but only if handled wisely. They would need to meet him in town, observe his actions, and make decisions based on their own judgment, not solely on the opinions of others. When the cowboy finally escorted the women to the town square, the atmosphere grew even more electric. The townspeople gathered closely, eager to see the young women whose skills and knowledge had inspired such an unusual proposal. Nea and Ayana walked with calm confidence, their heads held high, aware of their surroundings but unafraid. They carried themselves with dignity and pride, showing that they were equals in any arrangement that might be formed. The cowboy spoke to the townspeople once more, introducing the women and emphasizing that their choices and consent were essential. He made it clear that no agreement would proceed without their full approval and comfort. The townspeople listened, realizing that the situation was unlike anything they had encountered before. There was a lesson in respect, patience, and fairness unfolding before their eyes. Questions came from every direction. How would the partnership work? What resources would be provided? How would the women maintain their autonomy? The cowboy answered each question honestly and clearly, showing a deep understanding of fairness and responsibility. The Apache women, too, spoke thoughtfully, expressing their conditions and expectations. They asked for protections, respect for their traditions, and assurance that their voices would guide every decision. By the end of the day, a preliminary agreement had been reached, a framework for partnership that prioritized respect, mutual learning, and community benefit. It was not finalized, but it was a significant step forward. The townspeople left with a sense of curiosity and hope. The cowboy returned to his temporary lodging, and the Apache women returned to their camp, reflecting on the possibilities and challenges ahead. The events of the day had shown that bold ideas could work when approached with respect and honesty. Trust, patience, and understanding had begun to build bridges between two worlds that rarely connected. The story of the cowboy and the Apache women was no longer just about an unusual offer. It was about the beginning of a partnership rooted in fairness, dignity, and shared purpose. As night fell over Red Rock, the town was alive with discussion and reflection. People spoke of courage, respect, and the potential for learning from one another. The cowboy prepared for the days ahead, knowing that the true work was only beginning. The Apache women considered their choices carefully, aware that the partnership could bring new opportunities, but also new responsibilities. And in the quiet moments, when the stars appeared one by one over the desert, a sense of hope settled over everyone, signaling that the story of trust, understanding, and cooperation was only just starting. The days following the cowboy's proposal were filled with tension, curiosity, and quiet planning. Red Rock, a town usually calm and predictable, now buzzed with discussion and speculation. People talked in hushed tones as they went about their chores, wondering what would happen next. The idea of a partnership between the cowboy and the Apache women had sparked hope in some, doubt in others, and even fear in a few. But more than anything, it had sparked attention. Everyone wanted to know how the story would unfold. The Apache women, Nea and Ayana, continued their careful observation. They had returned to their camp after the meeting in town, carrying with them a mixture of curiosity and caution. They knew that decisions made too quickly could have long-term consequences, and they understood the importance of protecting their culture and their independence. They sat together by the river in the soft evening light, discussing the events of the day and weighing the possibilities. Nea spoke first, her voice calm and thoughtful. Ayana, he has shown respect and patience. That is unusual for outsiders. But we must remember words are easy, actions matter more. Yana nodded, her expression serious despite her youthful energy. I know, sister, he has listened and he has learned some of our ways. That means something, but we cannot forget the risks. The town may not fully understand us, and some may try to take advantage. Their conversation reflected the wisdom they had gained through experience. They were aware that the cowboys' intentions, while seemingly honorable, would be tested not only by their choices, but also by the reactions of the townspeople. Their strategy was simple yet effective. Observe, question, and decide carefully before committing to anything. Meanwhile, the cowboy prepared for the next stage of the arrangement. He spent his mornings working in the town, helping where he could, and continuing to learn from the Apache women during his visits to their camp. He observed their routines, offered assistance, and asked questions, not to challenge them but to understand their knowledge and way of life. His actions were deliberate and measured, designed to build trust through respect rather than persuasion. In the town, skepticism remained strong among certain groups. A few merchants questioned the wisdom of involving themselves with outsiders, worried that it might disrupt their simple, familiar lives. Some townspeople feared that the women might be treated unfairly, or that the cowboys' intentions might change over time. These concerns were not baseless. Past experiences had taught them that bold offers often carried hidden risks. To address these concerns, the cowboy invited key townspeople to observe the interactions with the Apache women. He encouraged questions and made it clear that any agreement would be transparent. He also emphasized that the women's consent and autonomy were paramount. Slowly, the townspeople began to understand that the arrangement was not about control, but about cooperation, mutual learning, and respect. The Apache women, too, continued their careful negotiation. They spoke openly with the cowboy about their expectations. Naya outlined the importance of their traditions and the need to protect their community from exploitation. She emphasized that their knowledge was valuable, but it could not be shared recklessly. Yana spoke of curiosity and the desire to learn from new experiences, but she insisted that their freedom and independence remain intact. The cowboy listened attentively, never interrupting, never dismissing their concerns. He acknowledged their conditions and reassured them that their voice would guide every step of the process. "I am here to learn from you, to support you, and to act only with your consent," he said. "Nothing will happen without your agreement. Your culture and your independence are not negotiable." As negotiations continued, small gestures of trust and cooperation began to appear. The cowboy helped the women gather food and supplies, demonstrating a willingness to contribute rather than just request. He showed patience in learning the proper ways to handle tools and techniques, often fumbling at first, but correcting himself under their guidance. These actions spoke louder than words, slowly reinforcing the women's growing confidence in him. In the town, more people began to see the potential benefits. Merchants imagined trading goods that could help both the town and the women's community. Farmers thought about learning techniques that could improve their harvests. Even children watched with fascination, learning indirectly about respect, cooperation, and cultural exchange. The town, which had been hesitant at first, began to feel a cautious sense of optimism. Tensions were not entirely gone, however. Some townspeople remained skeptical, watching every interaction closely. They questioned whether the cowboys' respect would last or if it might waver when challenges arose. Others worried that the women might be overwhelmed by the attention and expectations placed upon them. These concerns kept everyone alert, reminding the cowboy and the women that trust must be continually earned and maintained. Amid these tensions, moments of genuine connection and understanding began to emerge. Naya and Ayana shared stories of their childhood, their family, and their traditions with the cowboy. He listened with sincere interest, asking questions and showing appreciation for their knowledge. The women, in turn, observed his behavior, noting his honesty, humility, and willingness to adapt. They realized that he was not simply seeking an advantage, but was genuinely invested in building a meaningful partnership. One afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows over the plains, a town meeting was called to discuss the next steps. The mayor, some townspeople, the cowboy, and the Apache women gathered in the town hall. The discussion was lively but respectful. Questions were asked, answers were given, and compromises were proposed. Everyone involved had a voice, and the Apache women made it clear that their terms would guide the final decisions. The cowboy proposed a plan that balanced opportunity with protection. He suggested ways the women could share their knowledge without compromising their culture. He offered resources to help their community, emphasizing that their consent and comfort would be respected at all times. Naya and Ayana listened carefully, asking detailed questions and providing feedback. Together, they refined the plan, ensuring that it would benefit both sides while safeguarding independence and traditions. By the end of the meeting, a framework had emerged. It was not a final agreement, but it was a strong foundation based on trust, respect, and clear boundaries. The townspeople were impressed by the careful negotiation and the wisdom of the Apache women. They realized that this arrangement could serve as an example of cooperation, understanding, and fairness, something rare in the harsh world of the frontier. That evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, the cowboy and the women reflected on the day. Naya spoke quietly, her eyes thoughtful. "We have seen respect in his actions, and he has listened to our concerns. That is promising. But we must remain vigilant. Trust is fragile and must be nurtured carefully." Yana smiled softly, her curiosity shining through. "Yes, sister, but I also feel hope. He is learning from us and we are learning from him. Perhaps this is the start of something meaningful, something that could benefit many." The cowboy, observing the two women, felt a sense of cautious satisfaction. He knew the path ahead would not be easy, but he also understood that patience, respect, and honesty were the keys to success. He had made progress, but he remained aware that every decision, every action, and every word would shape the outcome. As night fell over Red Rock and the surrounding plains, the three of them sat together by the river, listening to the gentle sounds of nature. The challenges and opportunities ahead were clear, but so was the growing bond between them. Trust had begun to form, negotiations had laid the groundwork for mutual respect, and a cautious optimism spread through the hearts of everyone involved. The story was no longer just about a bold offer. It was about the careful balance of power, respect, and understanding. It was about the courage to negotiate, the patience to build trust, and the wisdom to protect culture and independence. And as the stars appeared one by one in the night sky, it was clear that the journey of the cowboy and the Apache women was far from over. The days ahead would test their resolve, challenge their patience, and demand careful decisions, but they were ready to face them together, with respect, courage, and hope. The sun rose slowly over Red Rock, casting a warm glow across the wooden buildings and dusty streets. After weeks of observation, negotiation, and careful planning, the day had finally arrived for the cowboy and the Apache women to formalize their partnership. The town had grown accustomed to their presence, and the initial skepticism had begun to soften into cautious optimism. There was an air of excitement mingled with tension as people gathered to witness the next chapter in this remarkable story. The cowboy walked through the town square with his horse following quietly behind him, his movements steady and confident. He carried no weapons or hidden tools, only a notebook and a bundle of supplies intended for the Apache women's community. His calm demeanor inspired trust, and as he reached the gathering, townspeople greeted him with nods, whispers, and cautious smiles. The women, Naya and Ayana, followed a few steps behind, moving with quiet grace and the confidence of those who had spent years mastering the wilderness. Their presence commanded respect, and the crowd fell silent as they approached. The mayor stepped forward to address everyone. "Today is unusual for Red Rock," he said, his voice carrying over the square. "We have witnessed something rare, a story of cooperation and respect between different worlds. Let us remember that every decision made here honors the courage, wisdom, and independence of those involved." The cowboy nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Mayor. Today is not about me or anyone else in the town. It is about forming a partnership that benefits all while honoring the Apache women's culture, knowledge, and freedom." Nea Yana, this is your day to speak and guide the outcome. Your choices will shape this agreement. Nea took a deep breath, her calm presence commanding attention. We have listened, observed, and learned over the past days. We have seen that respect and patience are present, and we have been heard. We wish to form an agreement that allows us to share knowledge, gain support for our community, and maintain our independence and traditions. Any action must honor our culture and be mutually beneficial. Yana added, her bright eyes shining with determination. We also ask that the townspeople understand our values and help protect our way of life. Cooperation is important, but respect is essential. We will decide what knowledge we share, and we expect honesty and fairness in return. The cowboy bowed slightly, showing his acknowledgement. Your terms are fair and wise. I will abide by every condition, ensuring that respect, transparency, and mutual benefit guide every step. The townspeople, hearing the women speak with such clarity and confidence, felt a mixture of awe and admiration. They realized that this was not a simple transaction, but a meaningful partnership built on trust and understanding. Conversations broke out quietly among the crowd, discussing the lessons learned about respect, patience, and cooperation. Even those who had been skeptical began to see the value in supporting the arrangement. The cowboy then presented the practical aspects of the agreement. He outlined plans to provide tools, supplies, and resources to support the Apache women's community. He explained how trade, learning opportunities, and mutual assistance would be organized, emphasizing that nothing would occur without the women's consent. He also assured the town that everyone could witness the process, ensuring transparency and fairness. Nea and Ayana listened carefully, asking detailed questions about how decisions would be made, how resources would be distributed, and how their culture would be protected. The cowboy responded with patience and clarity, demonstrating his understanding of their concerns and his commitment to respecting their autonomy. The women nodded in approval, satisfied that their conditions were not only heard but fully incorporated into the plan. As discussions continued, small gestures of goodwill were exchanged. Townspeople offered help in transporting supplies, providing labor for shared projects, and assisting in tasks that benefited both communities. The Apache women, in turn, shared knowledge about sustainable farming techniques, herbal medicine, and tracking skills that could help the townspeople understand the land better. The exchange was not one-sided. It was a true partnership, based on mutual learning and respect. The day moved slowly, with conversations, demonstrations, and careful planning taking up most of the morning. By midday, a preliminary framework was agreed upon, laying out responsibilities, benefits, and protections. It was not rigid, leaving room for adjustment as trust grew and circumstances evolved, but it was a strong foundation built on respect, fairness, and understanding. After the formal discussions, the cowboy invited the women to join him at a shaded area near the river. He spoke softly, away from the crowd, acknowledging their courage and wisdom. "You have shown patience, intelligence, and grace," he said. "I have learned more from you than I could have imagined. This agreement will work because it is guided by your choices, not mine." Nea smiled faintly. "We have also learned from you," she replied. "Your willingness to listen and adapt shows that not all outsiders act without respect. This partnership will succeed if both sides remember that trust is fragile and must be nurtured carefully." Yana added, "Yes, sister, and I feel hopeful. We are not only sharing knowledge but also building understanding between our worlds. That is more valuable than anything else." The afternoon was spent with demonstrations, explanations, and small tasks that symbolized the partnership. The cowboy helped set up storage for supplies, and the women taught basic survival techniques that could be shared safely with the townspeople. Children from the town watched in fascination, asking questions and learning indirectly about respect, culture, and cooperation. Merchants and farmers participated, seeing firsthand the value of mutual learning and careful collaboration. As evening approached, the town gathered once more in the square for a final acknowledgement of the agreement. The mayor spoke again, emphasizing the importance of trust, respect, and cooperation. "Today we have witnessed something extraordinary," he said. "It is a reminder that courage, patience, and understanding can bring different worlds together. Let us honor this partnership and continue to support one another with respect and care." The cowboy, Naya, and Ayana stood together, symbolizing the bridge between two worlds. The townspeople clapped, not in celebration of a purchase or deal, but in recognition of the courage, wisdom, and mutual respect that had made this partnership possible. The women's community would receive support, the town would gain knowledge and understanding, and the cowboy had achieved something rare, a true and honorable collaboration. As night fell over Red Rock, the sky filled with stars, the desert calm and quiet. The partnership had been established, but it was only the beginning. Plans had been made, trust had been nurtured, and the foundations of cooperation were solid. The cowboy reflected on the lessons learned. Patience, respect, and humility were far more valuable than speed, boldness, or force. Naya and Ayana felt pride and hope, knowing that their voices had guided the process and that their culture and independence were preserved. The story of the cowboy and the Apache women ended not with ownership or control, but with understanding, cooperation, and shared purpose. It was a story of courage, wisdom, and mutual respect, a tale that would be remembered by the town, the Apache community, and all those who had witnessed the careful negotiation of trust and honor. As the campfire flickered and the wind whispered through the trees, the three of them sat together quietly, reflecting on the journey. They had faced challenges, addressed doubts, and navigated complex negotiations. Now they could look forward to a future where knowledge, respect, and cooperation would guide their actions. It was a hopeful ending, not a conclusion, signaling the beginning of many shared experiences, learning opportunities, and lasting friendships. Red Rock slept peacefully that night. The town, the cowboy, and the Apache women united in a bond formed by trust, understanding, and mutual respect. And as the stars shone brightly above, the story served as a reminder that courage, patience, and honesty could build bridges between worlds, creating possibilities that no one could have imagined at the beginning.